Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Programming with a Purpose. In this video I'm going to show you how to use functions in Swift. So you are going to use the keyword func, after that the function name and rounded brackets, and then we are going to write the number of statements inside a function call. On line number 7 I'm calling that function greet. So it is going to print the line that we want to print using this function. Now I'm going to show you how we can mention the return type. So here I'm returning a string, and with an arrow I've mentioned the type string that I want to return from a function. So I have kept that string inside a constant string, and then I'm printing that string while calling this function on line number 7 and 8. So if I comment out the return statement, it is going to give me an error because returning from a function with a return type is essential. After that I'm passing it a parameter name of type string and appending it to the string. And when I'm calling the function on line number 7, I need to pass that parameter with a certain value. So it is going to print the string hello world programming with a purpose. Here I'm passing another parameter. You can pass multiple parameters of different types to a function. So here the parameter is already greeted with a type bool. So if it's not already greeted, we are going to return a certain string, otherwise we are going to return another string. You can also provide a variable and pass these values to the variable and then return a single string at the end of this function greet. So here, since I have passed it true, so let stock is printed because it will be returned from the else. So here I am printing these statements. And if you want to ignore the return type, even if it's returning from that function, even in that case you can simply use an underscore and ignore whatever is being returned, and the whole of the functionality of that function will be executed. So you can use underscore to ignore the return value from a function. So here I'm showing you I'm creating another function which is taking an array input, and it is going to return a tuple as output. This is quite an interesting feature of Swift where you can return multiple values from a function. So here I'm creating a variable total, which is basically the number of elements inside an array, and after that I'll be calculating the average of that array. So here I'm writing that logic. Follow all of these steps. So here I am returning two of the values, a total of array count and the average of an int array. So here there is an issue since average is considered to be an int with line number 18 type inference. So I have initialized it as double, and here I have converted all of the int types to double so that it will be able to perform all the arithmetic operations successfully. And after that, once it's returned, the error is removed. You can see that here you can get the tuple inside total and average, and you can print these values while calling the function average total. So you can see here the total and the average is printed successfully with the value of 3 and 1.0, which is of type double. And after that we are going to check another feature in function. If we do not want to mention the parameter while calling each of the function, we are going to use an underscore and space before the parameter name. So in that case we do not need to provide the name of the parameter being passed in a function call. Now I'm showing you here argument labels. They basically make the call to a function more expressive. So we are going to change the argument, basically the name of the label inside a parameter. So these are argument labels. So we have mentioned for, and while calling the function I'm going to use the parameter with the name for, and inside the function I'm going to use the parameter with the name. After that I'm going to show you here that we can set a default value for a parameter inside a function while writing its body. So here I have passed the string as programming with a purpose. So in this case you can simply call the function without using the for parameter. If you want to pass the value you can, but if you do not want to pass the value, it is going to use the default value, which is programming with a purpose. So you can see here that hello world programming with purpose is printed with the function call. Now I'm showing you here another important property inside functions is basically the parameters that are passed are non-mutable, so you cannot exactly change them during your function call. But if it's necessary to change them, then you are going to follow all of these steps. You are going to mention in-out with your parameter type, and you have to basically do all the processing inside the function to change that parameter you want to change. And when you are going to get it, you are going to basically save your value inside a variable. Here I'm passing the value directly on line number 41. It is going to give me an error. So here I'm mentioning that value inside a constant with name programming with a purpose. If you are going to pass it using a constant, it is again going to give you an error, so make it a variable and pass it with an ampersand, just like line number 43. So this means that it is going to pass the value by reference and not by value, which is basically a property of passing a string inside a function that I've discussed in the previous lesson. So here it is passed by reference, and you can see that the value is changed. So programming with a purpose hello is now saved inside the name. So all of the processing done in the function has updated our string name. So this is how you can change a value of a parameter during a function execution. So here I'm copying the function average total with all of its signature, and you can see that we can assign a function to another variable with the name we want to pass it. And here I'm mentioning its input and output types, and this is basically average total is basically assigned to now compute stats. So you can basically, depending upon the context, you can change the function names, so it is easier to understand the code. So here you can use that let total average, and you can call the function compute stats, and you will be able to print the values to check that it is working properly. So once the average is printed, I'm commenting out the upper line so that we get a single value. So the average 1 is printed for 3 ones. So it means that the compute stats is working just like our average total function. Now next we are creating another function with the name of print stats, and what we are going to do is basically we are going to pass the compute stats function as a parameter to this function. So this is also an interesting thing that you can do, that you can actually pass the function inside another function as parameter, and you can also pass along other variables and other parameters if you want. So here I'm passing another a parameter with type int. So what I'm going to do it here, let's see. So I'm here printing some values by using compute stats. So I'm assigning the value of compute stats to a local variable, and then I'm going to print it. So I have appended basically the value of a to my total. So total is 3 in that case, and when a is appended, it will be 3 plus a. So here I'll be calling this function print stats using my compute stats function as a parameter and a value of 2. So it means that 5 should be printed, which is the value on the bottom of the screen. So in this way you can pass the function to another function as parameter. Now I'll be adding some other functions here as well to show you another important feature in Swift functions. So here I'm showing you a function which is quite simple. You can understand from its signature is basically it is going to take an input and return an int as output. So input plus 2 will be returned. So after that I'm writing another function update value, which has now 2 arrows as return. So it means that it is going to return a function. So the output return type is not a simple return type but a function. So I'm going to pass it input into it, and it is going to get that input into add to. So I'm going to show you something interesting here now. So it is giving me that error because I'm passing here the input. It is not returning the exact type that I'm passing here. So it should basically take input as input and return as int. So I'm just going to pass a simple function name here. I'm not going to pass any of the input value here, but it is going to work as we expected. I'm going to show you here in a while. So here I'm calling the function update value with input 2, and it has returned the function add 2. So it's not returning the actual value but the function. So what we can do is basically we can, if depending upon a certain situation we want to return a certain type of a function, we can use this signature and this function body, and after that whatever is returned we can apply the certain parameters to it and get the value that we want to get. So here I have basically assigned update value input 2 to another variable, which means it is assigned to the variable call now, and I can now call this function with the name call with the value that I want to pass, and it is going to print the output. So it has printed the appropriate output, which is 4 in our case, when we are going to call this function, which is basically another function update value. So here I have basically shown you how you can use nested functions. In that case you can basically add other functions inside a function. These are only required if the scope is only limited to that function. So we can return a certain function depending upon a certain condition, which is basically if input is greater than 0, add 2, otherwise delete 2 is called. So here you can see that if I'm going to print the update value with an input, a function is returned, and we can use the appropriate function to perform a certain action on our input. So this is the end of the lesson number 4. I hope you're enjoying this series and learning something from it. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel, and if there are any queries, post in the comment section. Thanks again for watching.